Let's now bring in our guest for this part of the evening, which is Shekhar Iyer, senior journalist. Good evening to you, Shekhar. First of all, just want to ask you, what do you make of what's been happening through the course of the days when there was a lot of heat between India and Pakistan, a lot of fire being exchanged, and now things are quiet. But Monday is a much awaited day. That's when the DGMOs talk again.
Thank you, Gautam. I think the objective of this Operation Sindoor has been largely achieved because the message has gone across to the Pakistan government as well as its army that India will consider every act of terrorism as an act of war. A doctrine that was made clear yesterday comes after we have already made it clear through our actions. So therefore, yesterday, particularly after India struck at 16 air bases of Pakistan, some of them are very, very crucial ones. They are considered to be closer to where Pakistan has been claiming it has its nuclear facilities, thereby rendering all these air bases and strips inoperative. That's not a small achievement. It's a massive, I would say, damage to the Pakistan's military infrastructure. And after that, we could see the panic among the Pakistani army generals. And then they approached the Americans and wanted a ceasefire so that they are not further diminished, both in their capacity, in their ability, as well as the overall standing as a nation, because the kind of damage that the Indian armed forces managed to do without targeting any civilians, without targeting even military officials themselves, because the casualty was the defense infrastructure, the military infrastructure, and that we have succeeded. Therefore, when the Pakistan pleaded for a ceasefire, so the Americans also got some other information which the Vance, US Vice President Vance has mentioned that some kind of an alarming intelligence that the Pakistani generals could be up to even more crazy things. And there was also a feeling probably Pakistan could approach China, saying that their own military hardware had been put to test, and many of them had miserably failed. Therefore, the China needed to intervene. I think it is that stage where we see the American leaders approaching their counterparts in India and calling for a pause, in the sense that since the larger military objectives of India has been achieved, that perhaps we could pause for a while to see how the Pakistani army as well as the generals realize the impact of the decisive nature of India's actions. That is why India also made it very clear that it is the Pakistan which would have to approach India seeking a ceasefire, and then we responded. But just as your reporters were mentioning, even after the ceasefire was announced, we saw, and it appeared like one of the shortest ceasefires in the world, because by the time it was announced, say at around 5, by 6:30 onwards, we saw Pakistan again engaging in that kind of border theatrics,
Yes.
Firing drones and missiles, and Indian army gave it back in full measure. And after that, perhaps the generals realized that whatever has been managed with intervention by the Americans would have to be, maintained. And also, I hear, Gautam, I wish to share what I heard was increasingly the Pakistani army approach was seen to be more of a rogue, in the sense they were unwilling to listen to their government leaders. That's the thing that apparently the Pakistan Prime Minister conveyed to Americans, that the Army General, particularly Asif Munir, was not listening to what his government was saying. I think at this stage, the US Secretary of State appears to have spoken to the Army General to fall in line and see that the ceasefire is enforced. Gautam.
Okay, what you've right now recounted is a much reported version of the sequence of events that took place behind the scenes to explain what really happened between India and Pakistan basically yesterday, when that understanding of stoppage of military action was announced. But as far as India is concerned, let me just put across what our sources have been telling us. It is a very clear-cut set of pointers, really, and those pointers are they are clearly saying that after what had happened, it has been made clear that India will not at any level talk to Pakistan apart from that of the DGMO, which is supposed to happen tomorrow on Monday. There won't be any mediator in these talks with Pakistan, and these talks will have a very narrow focus. They will be about handing over of the terrorists responsible for attacks on India through the decades, and there are many of them who found safe haven in Pakistan, and the handing over of POK or POJK, Pakistan Occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So these are the things that India will be talking about, and this is what is India's refrain as far as our sources are concerned. Shekhar.
Yeah, definitely. You see, one thing was made very clear that we are not going to talk any other issue at this moment, which means whatever steps India took, beginning with keeping the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance, then scaling down the diplomatic contacts and diplomatic representation, and as well as imposing trade barrier. Those are going to stay for a while. There is not going to be any change. So what is going to be put forth very clearly that Pakistan has to stop for once and all that there can no more be any acts of terrorism from across the border, which would have very, very serious consequences, consequences that the Pakistan has not seen before. I think Prime Minister Modi was very, very clear when he said, soon after the April 22nd carnage at Pahalgam, that the consequences for Pakistan would be unimaginable, even for them. And that's what exactly has happened. Not since 1971 has Pakistan seen its air defense system completely collapse, has not seen the kind of damage that has been done to its defense infrastructure. I mean, this has never happened before. So Pakistan knows what's the price, and this price is going to go up and up. Well, the other world leaders, feel that the Pakistan could be up to some nasty trick. Perhaps it could, use the nuclear option. I'm not sure whether Pakistan's capability is intact after what has happened to its infrastructure. Even some of the air bases that have been struck by Indian Air Force are those that are supposed to be a part of that command structure or command center. But one thing is clear, Gautam. India is absolutely clear what it would take to bring normalcy on the border, and as well as for the relationship between two countries, that Pakistan will have to forsake terrorism as a state policy. We have said it so many times.
Shekhar, could you hold on a second because right now we're getting inputs that